Hey everyone, so the color theme of today's video is red. I've got red RGB lights, I've got this red shirt, I even have a red phone case. So we're going to go ahead and discuss, by the title, you've guessed it, it's Longlegs. And the reason for all the red is the red font, the red rounded aspect ratio. So I did watch this movie back in, all right, so I watched it on the 12th originally. And as you can see, I gave it a 3.5. I went ahead and rewatched this film about 3 times now, and each time that I've watched it, I just pick up on something new, or my perspective seems to change even more, and I actually love this movie a lot. I'm not sure if you could see it behind me while I was talking, but I do own it on DVD, and it is by far my favorite thing ever. It's got the slip cover. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with slip covers, but amazing. I know, probably wondering, why didn't you just get Blu-ray or 4K? Because I love DVDs. And so much so that sometimes when I do watch, side tangent by the way, when I go on YouTube, I do watch like other creators' physical media collection. Now there was a creator who I did watch and got me a little peeved at the fact that they were stating, who even owns DVDs? They're obsolete. I'm like, what? No. No, I rebuke it. Absolutely not. Okay, let me go ahead and try and structure this video accordingly. So originally I did have a Google Doc with a review of Longlegs, but I thought I discarded it. I guess not. And I guess I still have some of my old USF projects on there. So I'm trying to think of the best way possible to even describe Longlegs. So back when I released a video called Best of 2023, I'm pretty sure I had a clip attached where I was talking about Alan Wake 2, that horror survival game. You may have heard of it, may not have. But when I played it, which I haven't played in a while, I kind of stopped because I was so infatuated with the Saga Anderson part. I had to go back to the Alan Wake portion and just kind of lost my interest. In the video game, there is a character named Saga Anderson who is an FBI agent, and she is investigating these occult type murders at this seaside town called Bright Falls in Washington. And similar, we have a character named Lee Harker who's an FBI agent who's assigned to this case, this unsolved case with this very enigmatic serial killer named Longlegs. There's quite a few parallels that I thought of because Saga is described as a seer, like Lee, who is said to have psychic abilities. Truly, the still image of Lee looking at the wall of evidence with various ciphers and sigils does also make me think of the game. When you play as Saga, you can go to the Mind Place and add key details of evidence collected. And full disclosure, I am going to be discussing some very important key elements of this movie, so spoilers ahead. An FBI agent named Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved case involving a serial killer known as Longlegs. With a heap of evidence surrounding the decades-old investigation, the several murdered families in the Oregon area, and also the cryptic occultist messages, Harker must deduce the killer's next move before another family is targeted, all the while understanding her connection to Longlegs. This is directed by Oz Perkins, the director of The Blackcoat's Daughter, Gretel and Hansel, and I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside the House. Let me go ahead and start with things that I liked about this movie, starting with the marketing campaign. So, genius. The teaser, when I watched the teaser, I had no sort of sense of what this movie really was going to be about. And to be quite honest, this was my number one most anticipated film of the entire year. Like I said, we'll discuss some things about my out of theater experience, but as far as the marketing campaign, I really enjoyed what they did with like omitting so much and just having you wondering or guessing, what could this movie really be about? The trailers, the posters, the font that's used with the kerning, just having this overall minimalistic sort of feel to it. And I want to talk about the prologue. So the beginning of this movie that starts off in the past, and anytime that you see the rounded sort of aspect 4:3 ratio, we're in the past basically. And that just has a very pleasing 70s sort of aesthetic to it. The snowy Oregon neighborhood and the old station wagon parked out front, especially when it zooms in on the Harker family home. And then next, which is something that I forgot to mention, would be the quote at the beginning, which is from one of my favorite bands, and that would be T-Rex. Electric Warrior, which yes, I do have the vinyl. I think I had it in one of my older videos. I went ahead and read somewhere that Oz Perkins had stated that the look for Longlegs was inspired by Bob Dylan, but also that Nicolas Cage was inspired by his mother and his mother's mannerisms and just certain things that she would say that he incorporated into the character. Then it makes me think of like this androgynous flair that Longlegs seems to possess because of Like you see Lou Reed at one point in the movie, and then you see also Mark Bolan and T-Rex, glam rock era of rock in the 70s, which it seems like Longlegs is stuck in that time. Of course, following that, we do have Nicolas Cage's performance as Longlegs, who is also known as Dale Ferdinand Cobble. His high-pitched voice, just his pale face, his hair, like everything about him, even the way he speaks, he's just a very odd character. He's this character that has this sort of uncanny valley sort of quality to him that you can't quite put your finger on because of his face, like his facial features, like his nose and his lips. He looks like he's had a tremendous amount of plastic surgery done. There is a scene in mind before the interrogation when Lee and Longlegs meet, which I'm not going to go ahead and describe in detail, but I think it's what solidified that I do find this character unsettling in a different way. He's not exactly menacing or abrasive, and he seems to compose himself very well until he doesn't. He has a very self-assured disposition towards the ultimate goal of what's being carried out, and to me that is what makes him the most unsettling, is his devotion to his master. And then as far as Longlegs and the actions involved, I cannot stop saying cuckoo or imitating the hands over his head like little move that he does at the drugstore or whatever. It's so freaking hilarious. There are so many like iconic lines in this movie that I think are gonna stick, like there she is, the almost birthday girl, but in the pitch that he's saying it at, it's, oh my god. I was gonna say, this is the type of film I would recommend to someone who appreciates Nicolas Cage as an actor, but would be unable to recognize him, because upon my second viewing, when I showed Blair's grandmother, and I've been exposing her to more horror, we saw Cuckoo in theaters, and then, I showed her Longlegs. She was completely shook. Like, she did not even know that was Nicolas Cage, let alone his performance as this character. She was just like, what in the hell? I'm also thinking about the fact that I've been exposing some loved ones to horror movies, but obviously in a very tasteful way. Like my mom, who doesn't like horror, I've been showing her that there's other types of horror movies aside from like shock value, like super gory, splatterfest type movies, because my siblings love to get that little reaction out of her. So I got her to watch The Ring with Naomi Watts, and she loved it. And then I got her to watch The Night House, and she also loved that. So she loves mystery type horror. Okay, but going back to Longlegs, the next thing that I really enjoyed would have to be Alicia Witt, who plays Ruth Harker. By far, my absolute favorite character. Aside from Longlegs, she is the big standout of this movie. So Ruth Harker basically is the mother, of course, to Lee Harker, played by Micah Monroe. And similar to her daughter, you witness a very detached sort of dynamic going on, and you learn later on, of course, why it is that they're having these sort of stunted phone conversations where it's really awkward to follow. All right, so the next one would have to be the Satanic Visuals by Cosa Effects, I believe, and beautiful imagery, I just have to say. Especially the shot of Lee's doll head being blown by a shotgun and the smoke that is seen by us, the audience, and the devil's chokehold on Lee's memories as it slips away. Very much on par with the way Satan is presented in the film. The wide frame shots, so another important piece of the movie would have to be the importance that's placed on both the subject and the environment. So every time that I do rewatch this movie, I try to like decipher if there's something else within frame. At least a minimum of 10 times that I counted, you get to see Satan in the background following Lee throughout the whole film. And just throwing this in there, I wanted to include the editing of this movie because there is a point after it states part 2, which is all of your things, and then it cuts to Lee like opening up, I think it's using a switchblade or a knife or a letter opener or something, and it's just the way it transitions to that point. It's really well done. And then the next like would have to be something that I didn't expect to change my mind on, but it would have to be the metallic orbs, the dolls, the evil presence that is seen through the veil. And I think similar to what I was stating earlier with the smoke that you can see, the audience can see, I think it's the same situation with the demonic presence or the evil that's allowed into the home within the world of the film. I don't think they see it. I think it's just for us. And of course, it's another very important piece to the story. Once the doll maker, Longlegs, hands off his creation to his accomplice, Ruth, dressed as a nun, she knocks at the homes of their soon-to-be victims under the pretense that the doll is a gift from the church. And if I'm being honest, what made me like the addition of the dolls and that's Longlegs' specialty, it would have to be learning that the film drew inspiration from the real-life tragedy of the JonBenet Ramsey case, which adds a really just messed up layer to it. But while we're still here, I wanted to go through my old dislikes that I didn't delete and just see how it compares to now and this newfound love that I have for this movie. So the first one would be the marketing campaign. I stated the most infuriating part of the marketing campaign would have to be the bold claims that it's a modern day Silence of the Lambs. On the surface level, and perhaps based solely on the protagonist that it's following, as well as their awkward but astute personalities, sure, but the story is completely different. I mean, no. So I understand their reasoning for it to pull in, viewers, and it's like, oh, it's a modern day Silence of the Lambs. Like that's gonna drum up attention. At the same time, like my issue with statements like that is that then people have this like certain perception, and then you're already like saying something like scariest movie of the year, the best serial killer horror film since The Silence of the Lambs. Like when you make statements like that, which who said this? Awards Radar. I don't even know who the hell that is. Anyway, and they probably don't even know who the hell I am. But still, like when you have that on your poster, like that's like the first thing that you're seeing. It's like, okay, well, people are wondering, like, you better deliver. It's a spectrum, and everybody's going to react differently to this movie, of course. But does it bother me now, the marketing campaign, like those things? No, I really don't care. The next thing that I put was the plot progression. So uh, the sequence of events, this whole the way that's structured, it sounds so redundant. But anyway, that takes place from the midpoint to its final moments become way too apparent that there wasn't a tight enough script to sustain my interest. I mean, the pacing becomes sloppy. Oh, wow. Okay. What I think would have been more fascinating would be to change the story's approach, as in the foundation, and build from there. I actually don't agree with that. I think I'm fine with the plot, and I'm fine with the order of events as it plays out. And when you rewatch it several times, you definitely, like I said, pick up on more things that you may have missed the first time. So I don't agree with that. For me personally, I think that Lee did not she wasn't able to win. It was a lose-lose situation, to be quite honest, because she was forced to kill her boss and also kill her mother, which it kind of states that when she's given the birthday card when Longlegs visits her at her home. Again, the devil orchestrated everything and ultimately led to Lee's demise, which is what he wanted. Oh god, I'm really coming for myself right here. Okay, so the next one that I stated that I did not like would be lack of suspense or scares. As talented as I believe the actors in this movie are, I just wasn't convinced with the execution of certain scenes, or I couldn't take the situation seriously when it's compounded with moments of dark humor. An example of missing the mark would be the interrogation scene with Lee and Longlegs. It's supposed to be a landmark moment as these two a landmark moment, okay, as these two characters come face to face, but sadly it's not reaching the level of high impact. That level of high impact. What the fuck am I even talking about? Landmark moment. But I think I know what I mean, because it was another selling point of this movie to drum up audiences, was that Micah Monroe's heart rate had elevated to a certain point when she finally sees Longlegs. Personally, I don't agree with what I stated here, because I really don't believe this movie is attempting or aiming at trying to scare the audience. I think it's more so getting you sunk into this sort of like dreadful environment. It's very atmospheric, and that's what I really like about this movie, is that it is more like on the unsettling side. And I do not agree that with what I stated. I do not agree with the fact that it's compounded with like this dark humor. I don't know if it was intentional, but either way, like with Longlegs and his mannerisms, I think that's what I'm attributing that to. I think he was written really well. I think he was really funny, and I actually do like those moments that make me laugh. So the next one, predictable outcomes. Obviously, I can't say without going into specifics, but you're constantly given, I put cues. Did I mean cues or clues? I don't know. That make it evident the order of events. For example, what family will be targeted next. I do not know what's going on with that sentence, but okay. Now this one I do have to agree with regarding the Carter family. I definitely predicted that it would end with them being the ones to complete this inverted triangle. Did I know the exact details of how it would end? No, but still, it made it kind of evident. Now, the next complaint that I had originally was Micah Monroe's character, Lee Harker. So I had stated that the way she is written, not her acting abilities. Okay, the script is lacking certain details. Granted, yes, there's information withheld for a reason that becomes apparent later. Lee Harker is not my favorite character in this movie. However, I don't agree with it. The I think her character is actually like really disturbing when you put it into perspective, all that she's been through, and the fact that Longlegs has been living in her basement the entire time. But it goes back to what I was saying about Satan having this chokehold over Lee's life to the very end. Whether she would have been killed or the fact that she was spared, he was toying with her and having his amusement. To be quite honest, I think he succeeded. All right, so the next thing that I had stated about this movie and dislikes, in terms of dislikes, I put the third act, high promising start to low stakes conclusion with no payoff. It's sad because the thematic elements that it's bringing to the forefront at the end and that we explore throughout the film are worth discussing, but the way in which the story decides to weave said themes, dumping every bit of information at the end, feels rushed. Off, all is dread. But really, like, I mean, I get it. Yes, there is a lot of plot dump towards the end. And yes, there's like this point where Ruth just kind of sums up everything, giving us like a little sort of lullaby into what's been going on for the past 20 plus years. But maybe I'm just overlooking that because I really like Ruth Harker and I like that. I just like her in the nun outfit. This is probably one of my favorite looks for a nun, and just her, like the imagery of Ruth when she's covered in blood and she goes like, I forgot what's she's doing, like a, what's the pose? I'm gonna have to look it up. But she's just like, yeah, whatever it is that she's doing, it just looks really cool. So no, I actually don't really care about that. So third act is fine. Let's move on. Then the last thing that I put was early reveal of antagonist. So it seems that the titular character is the selling point of this film. So why not build suspense by not having such an early reveal? There's another complaint with the script and what they choose to do with Longlegs that gets under my skin because it just seems rushed. I would have rather it be a film that stretched 20 to 30 minutes more. Sorry. But no, I don't agree with that. So honestly, the only negative that I really have is that a little bit predictable regarding the Carter family, but really I don't agree with that because I think Longlegs served his purpose in the film. And while yes, I would have loved to see more of Nicolas Cage on screen, I think the character who is supposed to be subservient to Satan, and I know it sounds really weird despite the film being called Longlegs, really the main antagonist of the film was Satan. Now, as far as a few things that I wanted to go ahead and discuss, so after the point where Lee's partner is shot in the head, she is given this test where she's supposed to state the first thing that comes to mind. And when this triangle pops up, she states father. So we don't have that much information on her paternal figure as he's not present, but later we find out that Longlegs has been living in the Harker family's basement, creating the dolls for the 20 plus years since recruiting his accomplice Ruth. So I'm not saying he's her father, but in a strange way, it's almost like he is a father figure or a stepfather figure in this really weird family dynamic that's going on because of him and Ruth's relationship. Now, I do find it quite interesting that Longlegs tends to prey on nuclear households, yet Lee and Ruth were an exception. Aside from the father figure not being present, the thing that does remain is that Lee's birthday is on the 14th. As far as birthdays are concerned, it begs the question, why did Carter not mention Ruby's birthday being on the 14th? Did he have any inkling that his family could potentially be a target? Last thing that I wanted to mention, still staying on the topic of the birthday, so the 14th and its biblical significance. So this could be a stretch, but given that that verse is from Revelation 13:1, so just combine the verse and the chapter and you get number 14. At least that's what I was thinking when it comes to the significance behind that specific birthday. And then something that I cannot get out of my head would have to be Carrie Ann Camera, played by Kiernan Shipka. Just the choice of words, what she chooses to say to Lee Harker. That's what I like about this movie too, that I have to point out is the way it's written, the way the characters are written. I don't know, there's something special about it. I don't know really how to explain it, but it's just got quite the rewatch factor. And honestly, like another thing that I was going to mention that I've seen people state was that it's a slow burn. This is a slow burn. I don't see that because when I watched it the other day, Blair had called me. He had gotten off work and he's like, "What are you doing?" and I had stated, "I'm watching Longlegs," and he said, "Again?" And I was like, "Well, I fell asleep last time," and not because the movie, just because I was tired from work. I said, I only have 20 minutes left of this movie. Surprisingly, it's not that long of a movie." And I was like, caught myself there. And I was like, because of course the movie does have a lot of that as well, where the characters will state something like, "Let's have a long look at that too." There's a play on words with long and legs. But in my own personal opinion and experience, I don't really consider this a slow burn. I mean, it runs for an hour and 40 minutes, and I think that was perfect. The way everything seems to move along. I think the pacing's fine. I think the runtime's fine. Yeah. I like long legs. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. Let me know your personal thoughts on long legs and how you feel about it and your overall experience, theater experience or streaming experience, or if you own it on physical media. Let me know what you think about this movie and my opinions. If you agree or disagree, uh, comment, like, subscribe. I hate call to actions. All right. Bye, guys.